Okay. Well, for those of you who are watching this live stream, you are dropping in on another episode of our real-life software architecture. And this is a meeting of our language completeness and consistency group going over a variety of detailed things for the upcoming version of Wolfram Language. So let us start off with Readbyte array. Without further ado, oh, something is wrong with my DocuTools again. Does anybody know what's causing this? Where when I press get function page, it doesn't work. This is the exact same bug that I've reported multiple times.
Yes.
Do you know what the cause is?
No, I don't know what the cause is, but we have reported it multiple times, yes.
And has it been looked at or not?
I know Brian said he will look at it, and
Well, that doesn't really help us, does it?
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem? Sorry, I just rejoined.
Probably not one you can help with. It's the that DocuTools is not opening. Let's try it again. Okay, well this time it worked, so let's just be happy. Okay, so I'm gonna open this documentation in 11.2. Is that going to be okay, or should I try to open it in 11.3?
Well, for some of the graphic design things, you'll need it in 11.3.
Prototype build or regular?
Yes.
Oops. Okay, let's start with Readbyte array anyway.
Okay.
So is this is all new documentation? What is Readbytes? Did we end up with this, or are we calling these things Readbyte array? What's the difference?
Oh, I guess I haven't updated the. There is no write bytes, I don't think.
I don't think there should be. I think it should be write byte array. If it's read byte array, it better be write byte array.
Right, except write directly supports byte arrays, so I don't think we really need a write bytes.
What do you mean write supports byte arrays?
So if you have a byte array,
oh, this is writing to a channel.
So everything's writing to a channel. Write bytes does not write to a byte array. It writes a byte array to a file.
Yeah, I understand that. So what are you saying? So you're saying if that second argument is a byte array, it will simply, what does write try to do anyway? I mean, followed by a new line to the specified output channel. That doesn't sound very felicitous.
I guess I look at the binary write, which would be the relevant. So I guess it's still futurized for some reason, but it actually works.
Well, then let's unfuturize it. Which version did it unfuturize in?
I think it either 11.1 or 11.2.
Does it have examples?
That I don't know about.
Okay, well, how about is Sushma the one who's in here again? Okay, so can you chase that down, please? And get that defuturized, make sure it has examples.
Okay.
Okay, so now why is this, so binary read is different from read byte array?
Yes. Because in binary, for a couple of reasons. One is that in binary read, we don't really have a way to specify how many bytes we want to read.
Okay, so this reads from a byte array object instead of from a stream, and it's been futurized here.
That is something that Tali stuck in there years ago, and there's no implementation that I'm aware of.
So wait a minute. What this is doing, readbyte array, is reading from
A source into a byte array object.
Okay, so it's the analog of read string.
Or I think it's more analogous to read list only, or binary read list, only rather than returning a rather than returning a list, it returns a byte array.
So in some sense, it really should be called binary read byte array.
Yes.
And what would a okay, because read string, for example, is just reading, read string just reads a string.
Well, it reads.
So this,
right.
By the way, should be documented in parallel to read string. I mean, it should say reads the complete contents of a file and returns it as a byte array.
Okay.
And this whole thing about, you know, streams and processes and things like that.
Well, I think read string is the odd man out, and it should be, read string should be made to look like read byte array.
I don't think so, because I think this is very useful to see those different cases there. That's the reason I think it's important.
No, that is just plain wrong. I mean, like with the binary, with like write, we say channel. We don't say
I'm aware.
file
I'm
or
aware.
stream or process.
Yeah, I'm aware. I'm aware.
So
well,
read string should be made to conform to.
I don't think so. I think that this is what for people who are actually going to read string, they are thinking, you know, read string is a simple function, and they are going to be confused if it says channel, and they're not going to understand what it is.
Well, so it can say source.
Yeah, but I understand. Either way, it doesn't matter. It's, well, whatever. I don't think it's that important. I think this is better, which is why I did it that way. But I think it doesn't really matter what, you know, read byte array is already a more sophisticated function, so it's less important. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So this is saying, so this second argument, n, is analogous to binary read list, right? The fact that it has an n there is analogous to what happens in binary read list.
Right. Yeah,
n. Well, okay. Actually, okay, n objects of the specified types.
Right. Where? Yeah.
Now, okay, so the problem is, oh boy. So again, well, I'm sorry, what was it now? I'm already confused. What was the analog of write bytes? Binary, what is the analog of that we've decided, which is what we've decided?
There is no analog of write bytes. Write bytes is basically binary write.
Okay, so it's binary write. You know, the fact that we're getting so confused about this might make it make sense to call binary, you know, okay, the only question is there any conceivable way that we could fit read byte array into binary read?
Not really. I mean,
well, look at what binary read does. Binary read reads from a sequence of objects from a stream. It reads objects. So if one of those possible types was byte array as opposed to byte, why wouldn't that work?
Because there would be no way to specify the length or the possible terminators.
Okay, well, there does seem to be.
No,
I mean, we've always got a third argument of binary read, which we could use. I mean, we could even have a case of binary read in which it's binary read of, look, we could have binary read of your stream or source. We appear to be confused in this case about which one it is. And then the type would be byte array. And then the n, I mean, we could also do, the type would be byte array, or we could, in a possible abuse, I don't know, do something like this, so that we could fit that in to the types here. So we could say, read that, read a single integer, then read a length n byte array.
I guess the question is, and I guess that's a question for Garrett. I mean, do we lose all our performance benefit if we?
Is Garrett here?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
If we try to force this into binary read.
I think it's possible. There might be like a tiny bit of overhead, but I think it's negligible.
Overhead. I mean, the only question is whether code that will start looking really stupid.
Right.
I mean, so this is going to have a whole bunch of places where we're going to say binary read of a source that might be a socket, for example, as a byte array. It doesn't seem totally stupid to me.
Right.
But I think it doesn't completely match the types, because the types are types you're looking for when you're reading.
Right. I mean, it's conceptually not really quite the right thing.
Well, it is a type that you're looking for when you're reading. It's a byte.
No, there's no type byte array.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And right, and also
but those types will convert into Wolfram language types, which this is not doing.
Correct.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, Garrett, you should speak up, because yes, you made a correct point. Okay, so the only question is, if we're calling it read byte array.
I mean, I have no problem with calling it binary read byte array. It's just we thought that sounds a little funny.
It seems kind of stupid. Look at that thing. Okay, so it's analogous to read string. What other read functions are there in the family?
Yeah, there's read line, which is read string with the terminator of new line, right, of /r or /n.
All right, let's call it read byte array. Okay, let's figure out, what do we need to figure out here? So n bytes.
Yeah, the only thing that's a little bit unfortunate in the way we're currently writing this is I mean, I think there are examples which show this, but it's not 100% clear in that table of terminators that, one of those terminators maybe I should just list n number of bytes as a possible terminator.
Yes, do it.
Okay.
Just call it termination specification, can be any of the following.
Okay.
I'll put it in here just for. If I can get this to insert at the beginning of that table, which of course I can't. Are we ever going to fix that particular issue? Oh, look at that, that inserted. Okay. Anyway, n
number of bytes to read.
Read for. I don't think this is quite right. I mean, this needs to be done better. I'm sorry, I didn't do this right.
All right, I'll go and clean this up. I mean, there are still a few bugs in the implementation left, so the examples aren't finalized. So I'm going to need to go back and finish up the example so I can review this and.
Okay.
Is that exactly n bytes, or is that up to n bytes?
That's up to n bytes.
Okay.
Are you sure you don't want to have a thing where it's actually n bytes and you use up to if you want up to?
Well, I think it could be exactly, and then you'd pair it with end of buffer if you wanted up to. because you can have a list of terminators. So end of buffer might be.
Right.
So that's but what if you haven't? I see. So what you do if you have
I'm sorry,
10,
but
10, you read
well,
10 blocks of 10 bytes. But do they end up in a single byte array? In other words, 10, 10, 10 is equivalent to 30. Is that true?
Well, it's not looking for a
No.
number of types. That's just kind of stop reading at this point.
No, I think those are ORed.
Yeah, exactly. So there are two cases with possible subcases, right? Because there's end of buffer and there's end of file.
Sorry. I wrote the wrong thing here. What I meant was binary write.
Yes.
Go ahead. What were you saying?
So about the auto up to or not up to, there are two cases with possible subcases. So there's the end of file and there's end of buffer. Now with end of file, right, you're never going to get there, so it'll just hang forever if you insist on there being exactly n bytes. With end of buffer, and I don't know,
what is end of buffer?
We have this time constraint thing.
Oh, I see.
So,
go ahead.
So with end of buffer, we could make it be exactly n unless you encounter end of file, which may not be such a bad thing, but then it might hang if, right? Well, it'll block until it encounters either n bytes or end of file. I guess that's probably the right thing.
By the way, don't forget to make time constraint take units. Particularly relevant for this particular function, because I can imagine on some embedded device saying read byte array for 2 hours, and it just keeps on trying to see what comes in over a 2-hour period.
Right. So I think we'll need to sort of make that consistent across all of the read functions that take a time constraint.
I think it's certainly consistent across the URL reading functions right now.
Okay.
It's supposed to be. Okay, but please continue. I don't completely understand this, the list of terminators. Okay, so if I say...
So go to an example. There's an example like maybe the third one under scope.
Okay.
So go to the third one in this section, I think is the relevant one.
Third one in this section, so here.
Yep. Yes, exactly.
Bytes. I see. Until either 70 bytes have been reached or the end of a line is reached.
Yep.
Okay. So if I were to say 70, 10, I would just get 10 characters.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, in general, I could imagine all kinds of complicated termination things. Now, for example, in the case of socket communications, and Garrett, you will probably know about this. What kinds of things will happen there? How do you know the data is finished in a socket communication? Like, for example, a web server contacts you. A web client contacts a web server. I should know this, but is it self-delimiting how the packet ends and things?
Right. So if you use a specific protocol, you might be able to see the end of a packet. You could read all of the data available, which would be to the end of buffer. And usually if you send one packet at a time, it's not going to cut it off in the middle if you read to end of buffer. Or if you're looking for a specific sequence, depending on how you write, you could look for a byte array. I mean, there's a couple of ways to do it.
Does this look for a specific sequence? Can I put a character in here, a list of, I can put a byte array, but can I put I should be able to put a string here as well. Don't you think, Otai?
The only concern is
Character
how that
encoding.
string.
Sorry, I had accidentally muted myself. A string is a very ambiguous way to specify a byte sequence.
Unless it's pure ASCII.
Well, even then, not 100%, but there it at least has a chance of yes.
I mean, we could put a character encoding in this function to tell you the mapping, because I can just imagine that it would be useful that there are situations in which there are protocols where the thing ends like a mail message or something, ends with a period on its own line type thing. Maybe that isn't true anymore. Used to be true. Is it still true? Nobody knows what I'm
it might still be true in SMTP. Not sure.
Okay. In any case, let's look at end of buffer. What is end of buffer? Do we have a thing that was new in 10?
Yes, it was introduced by Tali for process link. Tali and Ernan.
Okay. Fine.
So,
okay, so it's a thing, and when we're reading from a process, it will be a reasonable thing to have here.
right.
Okay. What other issues are there in this?
I mean, I'm pretty happy with what there is here. There are a few bugs which will need to be sorted out, but those are really just plain implementation bugs and not.
All right. Should we be finalizing documentation here? Is that our objective? This is.
Yeah, I think this is ready.
Are we considering this experimental, or are we just making this real?
I think this one we can make real.
Okay. Kaboom.
And the mver bug above, if you want to fix that.
Not really. I'm going to let somebody else fix that because.
All right, I'll fix it when I make it pass.
Okay.
Right, we need to change that Terminator to termination specification.
Right. Reads until the termination specification or termination criterion, termination specification is satisfied.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Maybe it should say termination condition is satisfied. That would be better.
Yes.
Okay, gives the reads from source and gives the result. Reads. Maybe what you had was better. Okay. What about a URL?
I guess I haven't tested that. If I
should
suppose,
just work, I think. Okay. Anyway, that's just a comment. Let's move on here. This needs a bit of rewording.
And at least during Itai's pass, you should change termination specification to condition there as well.
Something like that. I'm not sure quite how to do it, but
okay.
Okay, this looks good to me. It isn't. It's partially knitted, not fully knitted.
Right.
And it hasn't been back knitted. Okay, should we move on to the next item?
Yep.
For Iconize, you will need to use a prototype build to see this.
Okay, fine.
To see the graphic design.
Yep. Okay, let's go there. I'm still getting some pushback on this name Iconize. Isn't Iconize, doesn't it literally mean make something a saint? Somebody, presumably a saint? Or am I completely mistaken?
Well, our spell checker doesn't think that it's a word.
That's good.
But
what on earth is going on here? Mathematica has detected an internal error. vMessage enull. Why it says Mathematica there, I have no idea. And why it says, well, okay, should I not worry about that?
Don't worry about that. There's an existing bug report about that.
Okay. Oh, canonized is the word I was looking for. Why could I think it was icon? That's stupid.
Because in the Eastern Church, right, the icon is a depiction of a saint.
Oh, okay. So it wouldn't be totally stupid to think this word.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So I have a whole slew of examples if you want to.
No, I just want to look at one thing here.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Well, whatever. Okay. Examples. Where are they? I mean,
in the ref page.
Okay.
So that is not in the prototype build, or it's not in.
No, I know it's not in prototype. I'm gonna. The problem is that I can't open that in the prototype build, so I'm going to do a hack here and copy it like this.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have folks from design here?
No, we don't.
Oh, I thought we had invited Billy.
I can check if he can join right now.
This is not the final design.
Right. So there was. This is.
I'm not seeing the blue shade on the background of.
It's there. You just can't.
It is okay. Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, maybe this is the final design.
It looks nice, actually. Looks quite nice.
Yeah. There was one question about the.
Shouldn't we say, sorry, yeah, but shouldn't we be saying byte space count, sort of English rather than byte count? Isn't that our convention for summary blobs?
Yes. Well, although given that this is literally, byte count, it's not totally crazy to.
It's not crazy, but I think we might as well split it.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the issue about the plus?
Well, I got multiple messages from different sources, so whether it should be identical to summary boxes plus minus, and B, well, there was some discussion of possibly changing it for everybody, and so the question is, are we sticking with this? So I guess the most important question is, should iconize basically have the same plus minus as summary boxes?
Yes.
Okay.
In my opinion. I don't think, whether we choose to change all of them is a different issue. It's a little weird looking, but it's not that weird.
Okay. Which was my opinion as well. I just, given that I got different notes from different meetings, I just wanted to make sure we're all on board with.
Right. By the way, I assume that shade of blue is the same as the too big shade of blue. No, come on, guys. Well, you probably can't see it through the Zoom session. Those blues have to match up, in my opinion.
Which blues?
The blue background for the show, for the too big expression, formatting too big an expression, and the blue here, the background blue there. They're just different shades of blue. Just seems wrong.
I can follow up with Jeremy on that.
Yeah, I think Jeremy. I guess.
I don't think we thought of that correspondence.
Yeah, I don't remember anyone mentioning this.
Okay.
Right. And I have to say that I would recommend having. By the way, whoever's shuffling papers or whatever they're doing, if you could mute yourself, please. Let's see. I was going to say, I think my graphic design preference would be that the lightness of that blue is a little bit too light, and that it should go to a darker hue. And darker, more saturated blue, for what it's worth. But since we don't have anybody from graphic design here, that's probably not a useful comment to be making.
Billy is on his way.
Oh, he is? Okay, we'll wait for him. Okay, so this is...
He should be here. He's here.
Okay, is that Billy?
Hi.
Hi there.
Yes.
Okay. So first comment was that I think the blue of this iconized box needs to agree with the blue of the too big expression box here.
Okay.
I mean, this is a more gray blue here. I don't know if you can see it through the Zoom session.
I'm familiar with it. I was looking at it for something else. I think it was the progress panel stuff because I was thinking about how these relate.
Yeah, that's interesting as well. Right. That's that. Look, we got to standardize on some blue for these things. We can't have 6 different shades of blue running around.
Yeah.
And I also noticed that this has a gray border. So just figure out what you think should happen there. My preference here is that these arrows should be a darker blue.
Okay.
I think it will be better. You just make it work. I don't know what exactly the thing is. So, okay, so here this bold. Do we really need to go bold for that name?
See, I thought that was a bit weird myself. I only saw that yesterday when I was, creating examples using the latest assets. And
we had some other versions. There was one where it was just blue, but it wasn't bold. Jeremy didn't really like that compared to
blue
this.
Is going to work.
Yeah.
Do we have a demi bold or something? Do we have any possibilities along those lines, or do we not have that?
In the notebook we do, but in the cloud interface, Jan and I have tried to keep our fonts pretty restricted, so it might look a little bit different.
Yeah,
and that was a concern there.
Right, and you also, I don't. Mac does demi-bold pretty well, but Windows, certainly okay. Linux, but I think also Windows are sort of
idea.
And it could just be black and slightly larger.
But it already is slightly larger.
What's that?
It already is slightly larger. It's one point size.
Well, just try it in black. Is that not? I mean, is that hopeless? Could you try this? Can you mark this for us?
Sure. There was some overlap. What was the question? The request to mock up?
This without bold.
Sure thing.
Okay. What about these other icons? Is there a library of these other icons here? Can we see that?
If you, oh yeah, you don't have them in the assets, but if in the scope section, I think I have all of them.
Okay, fine. Let's just take a look here. What on earth?
Yeah, well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That looks weird, if I might say so. I mean, it looks like some kind of strange square-headed creature with 2 eyes and a mouth. Could whoever's making that background noise please try to figure out how you can not do that? Okay, so I think this is crazy, and I don't see the reason to have a ... there. I would just have, we may already look silly with the eyes, but just have double quotes there. Just have bigger double quotes and forget the ... there. My suggestion.
Okay. There was a previous version that I think Jeremy may have mocked up, and your feedback at that time was to include the ellipsis.
Right, and we use the ellipses in basically all of them, right? We have ellipses or grid. And right,
okay. How do you avoid this effect? You see the effect I'm seeing, or maybe you don't see it.
Yeah, well, I think maybe I think the problem is that they're sort of angled but not really curly, right? So maybe we either need to make them normal double quotes or really proper curly quotes.
Yeah, maybe if you bring down the size of the dots there, it would help. If we can do that consistently for these cases where they're annotated.
And the other thing is that if you got rid of the little frame and you just had the arrows, it wouldn't provide as much of a head shape.
Yeah, but I'm not sure you can do that with it. It depends on the blue, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I'm giving you that feedback. Okay, so it's a pure ... in the case of something other than a list. So if it's a list, it's just a ... Is that correct? Or no, those are brace brackets around it. Oh my gosh. Okay.
I can list the special cases if you like.
Yeah, please do.
So there's list that's one dimension, list that's more than one dimension, association that's one dimension, association that's more than one dimension.
What does the association that's more than one dimension look like?
It looks like the array of dots between the association brackets.
I see. Okay.
We have data set, which I don't think we have an example of here, string, and then the fall through.
The what?
The fall through case.
Oh, I thought you said the vulture. I was very confused there. Okay.
We haven't yet added the vulture icon, but we can.
Yeah, right. Okay. So let's just take a look for a let's look just as an example here of something real. Let's just understand how it works with something from the data repository. Okay, let's take let me just pull up something random here. Let's do our meteorite landings here, resource data there. Okay, so now we would say iconize this. Oh, I hate this thing. It needs to be fixed.
So there's the data set icon.
Nice. That seems pretty good to me. So what you're telling me is if I take that thing and I say ds equals, oops, what happened here? I did a copy and it went bonkers. And then I do paste that, right? And I say ds equals that. Then that will be what it should be, so to speak.
Yes, head of ds is the data set.
Wonderful. That's really nice. You know, I quite like this, Billy, for what it's worth, I quite like this blue. Perhaps even better than the grayish blue of that too big thing. I mean, it just has to be, we just have to have consistency.
Yeah. Plus there's also the autocomplete blue, the suggestion bar blue. They're all kind of all different.
Okay, well, okay, maybe we can have some differences, but we need to at least know what we're doing.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'm decently happy with this. These icons, I could live with all of these icons right now, but I think there's some tweaking that would be nice. Did you, sorry, Billy, did you get that mock-up of the thing without the boldface?
Yes, I could.
What are some other examples where we use boldface? Do we have any other summary boxes where we use boldface?
No.
Do we have any other ones where they've been given a name?
Not as such.
Okay, so Billy, let me know when it's there. Is it going in your folder?
Yeah, you could start heading over there, and then
I'm
hopefully by the time. Oh wow, okay, no, you were way quicker than me.
Okay.
So if you go in there and go to LCC, and then it should be unbold. So there, it's bigger, not bold, same level of.
I think that looks okay.
Value.
Anybody want to object to
it? I don't know that it needs to be any bigger than it already was.
Try it one down a size.
Sure.
Okay, but leave that one on there. We can compare. Okay, let's move on. So are we happy that this was basically a graphic design story?
Right. So I have a couple of questions. One is whether we want to document the fact that it returns an iconized object construct. We don't have a ref page for iconized object.
Let's not document that for right now.
Okay. Right. And I guess the question is, all right, so I made a note about evaluate in place, since that's certainly going to be, I think, a common thing. I don't know if that should be an example here, or I should just tell Chris Carlson that he should create a workflow for this.
Why would evaluate in place be common?
Because you have something blobby, you want, so, right, you could do your example in one step if you had your resource data example in one step. If you had written ds equals iconize of
Oh, I see. To evaluate, I didn't read it carefully. To evaluate iconize of expr. Yeah, that's
exactly.
a good point. Yeah, right. I see. So what you're saying is, what I would do is I would take range of 50 dot range of 50, for example. And then in that input code, I would just say, well, what would I do? I would put in, I would say there, iconize. So there's a certain argument that the right-click menu should contain iconize.
That would be useful.
Roman brought up this possibility in the pull request review as well. I think we should certainly consider it.
It might be an expensive operation for.
So what?
Yeah.
I mean, we've got all kinds of CRUD in here. I think that will be a very useful one. I wonder whether in the cloud, whether there's a way to do that also. Because we don't have general evaluate in place in the cloud at this time. Although I think Jan said it was coming. Anybody know?
No clue.
Don't know.
Okay, we're still hearing that background noise. Could somebody please try to? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I have no objection to it being. I mean, I guess what happens if you select something that's not a valid expression, right? It has to be parsable. Does it just beep at you?
Yeah, it does nothing. Well, it does nothing actually. I don't even know what that did. I don't even know what the behavior is there. It's not something that's happened actually, but it probably should beep. It didn't beep.
Right.
That's a question. Lou, do you know the answer to that?
Not offhand, no.
Maybe you should ask around, but that has not been something that has come up big time. But listen, okay, so action items here. You know, Chris and you need to work on a workflow for this.
Okay.
We need to put it in the right click menu, and we need to understand what happens in the cloud. Reasonable?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So while we're talking of shades of blue, should it be related at all to the blues that are in information on that notebook to the left there, or?
Oh boy, we've got so many blues running around.
I know.
Those come from the documentation, right? Those match the ref pages for the usage.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think this is
blues,
a question,
which are for different purposes, should be different.
Yes, right. I think this is a question for Jeremy. Billy should bring it up. Jeremy isn't here, is he? No.
No, he's not here. We had talked about it, and I think you were there for this conversation where the blue for the progress panel and would sort of match iconize because these are things that are sort of in transit or otherwise
fine.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. All right. Are we Billy, did you have that one last sample for us?
I think you should be able to refresh, yeah.
Okay.
So original 11 pixels and 12 pixels.
I think 11 pixels is fine. What do you think?
That's what I think.
Fine. So, let's go with it. Okay. All right. I think that's everything for Billy here, to my knowledge, unless he's involved with success. Sounds wonderful. Okay.
I was gonna say, is that gonna come up to blues again?
I don't know. Yeah, let's take a look. Let's take a look. Let's do. How do we get a success? I'll send myself something. No, it's only great. What the heck happened to that check mark? That check mark is some crazy bitmap.
Well,
Billy, I think that is for you. This is because I'm at 125%. Why is that check mark looking blobby like that?
probably the resource is some PNG or something.
I can take a look at that real quick.
Okay, something went wrong there. Oops, that wasn't the right thing.
It's
Although
possible
I
that
thought-
bitmap isn't at the right dimensions.
Yeah,
It's
I thought
everything
we
was
had.
scaled.
I thought we were using characters for those, but like an actual check mark, just resized, but maybe not.
Well, Billy, that's for you and or for Sushma to check up on, I think.
Okay.
Isn't the ordering of the things in the success object wrong? It was supposed to say mail sent or something.
So that was
So-
one of the questions that Shadi mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so yes, there are all sorts of things here. So
Is Shadi here? Or do we? What is the? I mean, wait a minute. Does Shadi have some definite opinion that is different from some previous opinion that we had?
I don't think she does. She was just passing back the feedback from Monday's meeting that you wanted to have a description as the first item.
Yes.
And
because I think this is utterly obscure and nobody wants to see this message ID.
Right. I think the message ID being first is just an ordering problem.
Right. I also think the tag is not that important. I think what we really want, just like in failure, if you understand.
The failure shows the tag. So here.
No. The failure does not show the tag. The failure shows, does it? I mean, the failure shows.
Yeah.
How do I get a good failure? I can do interpreter of city frog. Oh, there's probably some city called Frog somewhere. No. Okay, so first of all, it has a message, right, which is nice and human readable. Okay, right. I agree it has a tag.
Yes. Okay. And so I have no problem. So if we want to mirror failure, then that's fine. It has a message, which might be just mail sent. But I think it should be, right, I think we need a message with a message template. Otherwise, there's no way to localize these.
Okay, fine. And actually, your point that we can call it message is probably okay. I mean, you're suggesting we call it message. I maybe had a different suggestion where it was an unnamed field, which doesn't actually make a lot of sense.
Right.
So, okay, message, mail sent seems fine to me.
Okay.
And then if you want, whether tag mates it above the fold or not, I don't think is terribly important. What do you think? Do you have see, that's useful. That's useful. I mean, if what you actually saw above the fold was message sent, recipient, blah, blah, blah. It is a little confusing that the message says message sent.
Right. I mean, I was not super crazy about the tag to begin with, but
I think the tag might be programmatically useful. I also don't understand why the alignment is the way it is here, but that's a different issue.
I mean, so with new style messages, the tag is hidden and it's only in the tooltip.
Yes. Well,
right.
I wouldn't be horrified by having failure have the tag be under the fold.
So do we want, right, but tag is a required field, I think. It's certainly a required argument. So
yes, I think that's a good idea because I think it allows it to be programmatically handled.
So does that mean that irrespective of whatever else happens, tag is then the first field under the fold?
I don't have a strong opinion about that. I think it's seems like a good idea right now.
Okay.
Then I think simplifying failure to not have the tag, if that is consistent with all the uses of failure, seems reasonable to me.
Okay.
And then success would have, it's a pity we have to call it message, especially because our first example of success is with message sent, unless we call it mail sent. Yeah, mail sent would be okay. Message : mail sent. Although we're going to have the same thing, when we end up with SMS messages, which actually we have in this version, we'll end up with a message : message sent. Do we want to call it message? That's the question. You know,
I think the other thing, the other name you had proposed for it previously was description, but there is kind of a nice symmetry of having it be a message. If
yeah. Let's call it message. Okay, and let's have the message be for send mail be mail sent. And then let's have recipient as the next thing, and then under the fold we can have the message ID and the tag.
Okay. Yep.
If you think we want the ordering of the tag first in the under the fold, fine. I don't feel strongly about it.
I think it should be consistent. So I suppose it could be last.
I think last wouldn't be bad.
But it should be sort of in a consistent location.
Okay, I'd recommend last. Any objections?
Okay.
No, I think that's fine. For the message mail sent, that's mail sent as like a sentence, not camel cased, right?
That is correct. Yeah. Its tag happens to be mail sent as well.
Right.
Yep.
Someone is asking, why are the success and failure boxes? This is what we get for having. This is good. This is public comment. Why are the success and failure boxes gray, not blue? Because all of our summary boxes are gray, and we wanted to have a distinctly different color for the
iconized blob.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Are success and failure copy pastable? Presumably they are.
Everything's copy pastable now.
Okay.
Well, unless people are foolishly still forcing interpretable to false. But
right.
Can we check that?
Is
by
the
way?
large output copy pastable now? No.
Depends on your meaning of copy pastable. Oh, the large output. No. I was talking specifically about summary boxes.
Right. Yes.
Sure. The answer is yes, Brett. It's just an interpretation box that evaluates to out of n.
And it's just a really big thing to copy and paste around.
But it's not. It doesn't have the data. It's just out of it. Literally, out of n is the interpretation.
I see.
Okay. All right. Can we move on, please?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. So we're done with success, so to speak.
Yep.
Let's defuturize success just for.
Okay, and if you want to delete that excluded cell that I put in there, so I wouldn't forget anything I wanted to bring.
I don't know how to just delete the excluded.
Oh, that's interesting. All right, I'll fix it.
Okay, onward. Base encode, base decode. This is our last thing, and then if Eric can let the guys from the next meeting know we're slightly late.
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
base encode.
So pretty straightforward. Well, the current implementation is straightforward. You can take a byte array. No,
That's a byte array. What happens if I just want to do this?
Then you need to convert it to a byte array using string to byte array.
That's kind of obnoxious. I mean, why not support the string?
Because you get into interpretation problems.
Explain.
Right, a string is not a list of bytes. A string is a string, and then depending on the character encoding, that may or may not correspond to one or more bytes, and right to an array of bytes.
Well, you mean the Unicode character here could be encoded in all kinds of crazy ways or something? Is that your point? Or like big endian, little endian, all that kind of crazy stuff?
No, I mean like the fact that right, the code point of alpha is 945, which is not a byte.
I understand that, right? It's a multi-byte character, which could be inserted in different ways in the string. Right.
Right.
All right, okay. Okay.
So we could conceivably, well, I know. I was going to recommend that we do this as experimental for now anyway.
I think that wouldn't be a bad idea.
And sort of I put a question in there.
Do you realize that this has failed again? This get function. Oh no, now it worked. This case base decode. Go ahead. The question, we have one encoding. We probably have 15, base 16 and base 85. Yes, definitely.
Right. So the question is about.
I think we should support both names, RFC 2045 and maybe base 64 line breaks.
Okay.
I mean, I think supporting a standard name for this is a perfectly reasonable thing to do if that's, you know, what it's typically referred to as.
Okay.
And the names for those other ones, I think it should just say base. I would think that what we should do is say base encode. I mean, these things are, you know, when it says base, whatever it is, I mean, it's, you know, okay, so let's say byte array, range of 10 or something. I think we should just say base 85 here, like that.
Right, which will go to, I think, I don't remember if you know, 4648 includes a base 85, but presumably it'll go to whatever is the most current RFC version. And then in the future, you know, and then the other variants.
Well, yeah, right. If there are variant issues, we could use a method option for the RFC.
Okay. Right. Well, so sort of. Right. Well, so the issue is that, for example, base 64 is described both by RFC 2045 and 4648. Only those are slightly different versions.
Well, then I think we should use a method option. I think we pick a default and use a method option for those RFCs. So I'm recanting my previous statement about. I mean, maybe we could offer as an alternative just putting in the encoding RFC 2045.
Mm-hmm.
But I think more explicitly it would be base encode, blah, 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 you know, base 64, comma, method arrow RFC 2045. I mean, that would be extremely clear in terms of people reading code and things.
Okay.
Okay, so base decode. So now, in order to do base decode, the default base decode will just be base 64.
Yep.
And then this would be byte array to expression, right? Or normal of byte array.
If you want to see the byte, it's normal. If you want to convert it to a string of data, then, you know.
Okay. All right. This seems good.
Okay.
Is there any other thing we want to point this to? Integer string, yeah, those are sensible. Don't we want to point these to import and export? Import
sure.
string. An import string and export string should point to these as well.
Okay.
Could URL encode be further up in that list?
I don't think so, because URL encode is a text-to-text transformation, not a binary-to-text transformation.
No, but still, conceptually, people are going to look for it there, aren't they?
I'm not sure. I'm just asking.
Right.
My initial inclination is no, but maybe if we asked somebody like Ricardo or Carlo, they'd have a different opinion.
Right. My tendency would be to agree with Brett here. Okay, I think we're done. Anything more that we need to go over for this?
Nope.
In this collection? Okay. Thanks all. I'll push these changes and see you all later.
Okay.
See you later.
Bye.
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 Everyone.